Hello everybody, this is Yoshi. I just wanted to have a bit of a wake and bake and talk about some serious matters going on in the USA. We got like 130,000 coronavirus deaths and basically skyrocketing. The cases are skyrocketing as well after the states decided to, test the waters and reopen. And now it's worse and worse and worse, especially like in Florida, which has reached 200,000 cases, with reaching 100,000 cases within a few days. They're topping their cases are topping 10,000 a day now. Texas is getting pretty bad. It's pretty much getting pretty bad all over, and it's because the greed of some people. They wanted to reopen the nation so that people can work again. Which if the government was better and actually just gave people benefits for the moment, like what other nations are doing. Canada is giving like $2,000 a month for coronavirus relief. The United States gave a one-time payment of $1,200, and there's also a massive eviction crisis going on, where trash landlords are looking to evict people because they can't pay, because they either lost work or they're behind on rent, because even though there was a lockdown, rent wasn't rent wasn't waived or anything, so people got behind on rent because they couldn't work, so they couldn't pay their bills. And so that's going to cause a massive increase in homelessness, which is going to cause another increase in cases around the nation. You got the protests going on against police brutality and systemic racism, which some people still want to deny doesn't exist. But even though people are protesting police brutality, the cops are doing nothing but showing brutality, attacking peaceful protesters, attacking media officials, attacking elderly people and children, like in Boston, where a couple cops pushed down a 75-year-old man who, because of the fall, now suffers brain damage and mobility issues. And you know what Trump said about that? That the guy was an Antifa member looking to harm the cops when he was just trying to return an item to the cops, a police helmet. And after those cops got in trouble, you had like 57 cops decide to leave the emergency response team because they were upset that cops were being punished. And Colorado, governor Jared Polis, he's removed qualified immunity from the cops, and has done various other things to hold cops more accountable. And what do? They either quit the force or they flee the state to another state that will protect them in their crimes. Atlanta, Georgia, where Rayshard Brooks was murdered. Cops are quitting the force or going to other departments in the state because they are upset that they can't murder black people and get away with it anymore. The cops who murdered Rayshard they're in jail, and I think they're still awaiting trial. The people that murdered George Floyd, they're in jail as well. But it's still not complete justice. There's still so much to be done. like Breonna Taylor. The cops that killed her are still walking free, even though the state passed a law for banning no-knock warrants, uh, called Breonna's Law, or maybe Taylor's Law. But so they're admitting that, you know, she was wrongfully murdered, but won't punish the cops for it. Um, then you have what's going on is a bunch of nooses being put up around the nation and at various parts. Like John Hopkins University, a noose was found. But something even worse is going on, is you have black people being found lynched around the nation, and cities are calling it a suicide when it's not suicide. It takes, you know, people protesting the city in order for them to actually want to do an investigation, which is really fucked up, because they should, you know, people don't, you know, hang themselves out in public. If someone's going to kill themselves by hanging, they would do it, you know, somewhere where nobody will see them. So there are white nationalists that are killing people. I feel that maybe cops also have a hand in it. Our president, Trump, is a white nationalist as well. He tweeted a video on his Twitter of a guy yelling white power. He's trying to make Antifa a terrorist group, when all Antifa are anti-fascist people trying to fight against fascism. And, you know, if your president is trying to say that being anti-fascist is terrorism, well then, that means your government is a fascist government. And we all know that Trump is a fascist. He's a white nationalist. His grandfather was in the KKK. Trump and the Trump family are known for racism. So it's not surprising why all this is going on. I just wanna, I don't know. Trump is going to be leaving, at least next year. He'll be out of office, but it doesn't mean that the next person that we have in office is going to be even better. If Joe Biden wins, it's just another racist in office, because Joe Biden, even though he's a Democrat, he is really racist. If you didn't catch his, what he wants to call a gaffe of telling a black person, if they don't know who they're voting for, they're not black. I mean, blackness is not dictated upon who you vote for. It's just getting crazy. Like, you know, we got 2020 is just something else. You got a pandemic, and then you get this whole new civil rights movement, which is still being met with extreme brutality. Something needs to be done, because the thing is, just like reforming the police or defunding the cops ain't gonna do much, because, you know, we got lawyers and judges that are racist, we got politicians that are racist, we got various powerful business owners that are racist, and until we like do a total reform of like government and society, racism is truly never going to end. It's just going to people are just going to find ways to try to hide their racism. Like with the 2008 housing crisis, there was reverse redlining involved in that, where minorities, black people, Hispanics, and the such, were charged higher interest rates for loans to buy a house. It's the opposite of redlining, where instead of charging people for, well, with redlining, what happens is people are denied various services and stuff because of skin color. Like in the past, where black people were denied loans for either to buy a house or to start a business or something because of the color of their skin, and it was easily shown who were to be given loans and stuff. The black people were poor. The city, the area where they lived, would be poor. And the thing about that is like being able to buy land and stuff, or own land, is a great way of increasing one's wealth. So denying black people the ability to buy land denied them the ability to generate any kind of wealth that they would then be able to pass down to future generations, which we have seen time and time again with white people throughout history, of them gaining land and then being able to gain a bunch of wealth from that land and then passing it down the line to their family. Because of this forced poverty amongst black people, it has caused a whole lot of problems. Because of the lack of money, there's worse education, since education, like public schooling, is tied to taxes, and the less money they're able to be able to pay means a lack of the lack of opportunity of getting a proper education compared to their white counterparts who have really good schools, who get, tutors and various other things that come with having money. Everything is pretty much tied to being able to own land and gain wealth. The more wealth you have, the more opportunities open for you, which is a problem of our society, because opportunity shouldn't be based upon how much money you have or how much money you can spend. Everybody should have the opportunity of, how I see it is, resources, goods and services and resources people should have direct access to it, which we can do with automation. We can, if we as a society start automating more and more businesses, and then allowing people a direct access to that automated business, we could get free goods and services. As the robots, you wouldn't need to pay robots in order to work and stuff. They could work 24/7, manufacturing items, collecting resources, processing stuff, and delivering that. And it wouldn't be hard. There are places already looking to automate their businesses to basically make it one giant drone warehouse. Amazon has a lot of robots that work at, or Jeff Bezos has a lot of robots working at Amazon. So it wouldn't be hard to just make it completely autonomous. Because the thing is, with the 400 or so years of forced poverty for black people, it makes it impossible for POCs to actually get on the same level plane as white people of the same counterpart. You had slavery. Then after that, you had Jim Crow laws. And then after that, you had the drug war, which was used to target black people and various other groups, but namely black people, and to prevent them from being able to do anything. You arrest them for cannabis, which white people were also smoking cannabis at the same rate. Then, give them a record that prevents them from getting a job. And then having a record also prevents you from getting various loans or getting into college and various other things. So it's a cumulative effect where you're just constantly being punished for being black. Uh, like the drug wars, reefer madness, that was a thing where they said if black people smoked weed, they're gonna rape white women. So, our government convincing everybody that, black people smoking weed made them want to rape, they, were arresting black people over that. And it shows systemic racism. And that was like in the 70s and so, and it's only, 2020. So it wasn't that long ago. Jim Crow laws, civil rights movement, all this stuff wasn't actually that long ago, less than, 60 years, some of this stuff. And people want to act like racism ended the moment, the civil rights movement got some laws passed. No, it didn't end. It just became, less blatant, more hidden. Like with the reverse redlining in 2008. I can't name any more examples off the top of my head. Oh, I had one and then I lost it. We're getting monuments toppled to various Confederates and racist colonialist leaders and stuff like George Washington. You get Columbus statues being removed, which is I'm all for. Let's just destroy all these monuments. You got people saying that, if we destroy these monuments, how are we going to learn history? Which, those people, they don't truly care about history because they don't even know history themselves. Like, claiming that Columbus founded or discovered the Americas, which he never even stepped foot on the Americas. He found a bunch of islands and stuff, and he thought he was in India. Columbus was a moron, a mass murdering genocidal maniac. But people see this guy as like some kind of hero. And it's because everything has been whitewashed to make it seem like these colonizers did something good when all they did was murder a bunch of people. George Washington murdered a bunch of people, hated the indigenous Native Americans, had slaves. Thomas Jefferson, Andrew Jackson, Benjamin Franklin. All these people were trash. The only reason why, the founders wanted to break free from British rule was because they knew they could make more money not having to pay taxes to the royal crown and keeping that all for themselves while still forcing black people to be their slaves. Thomas Jefferson, he raped a slave and quote unquote married her, but some people want to try to say some of the founders who married their slaves were all consenting and stuff, but if you're a slave, you don't have any say if your slave owner or your slave master wants to make you have sex with them. You can't say no, either otherwise you're going to get beaten or killed. So these people who are trying to protect history are just trying to protect a altered version of history that makes the people that they like into heroes when they're nothing but monsters. You got I don't know. This is kind of all over the place. I can never really keep my thoughts completely straight. There's so much to talk about, so much that's still going on. We still have people dying in the name of freedom and equality, and you still have people murdering in the name of oppression. Um, Cops have done nothing good whatsoever for anybody except for a certain select few, and that is pretty much for the wealthy elite of the nation. Because well, you still have people dying that shouldn't be killed. Cops aren't judge, jury, and executioners, and that's what some people cannot fathom. Just because somebody may resist arrest or looks a certain way or something, or didn't obey a cop command, it doesn't justify a cop killing somebody. Like in Colorado, Aurora, Elijah Wood was murdered by the cops. He was listening to music, and he didn't hear the cops tell him to stop. The cops were called on him because he looked suspicious. A black man wearing a mask. That's always suspicious. So cops choked him and injected him with ketamine, and he died. Though in the same city, the Aurora movie shooter was able to shoot up an entire movie theater, and cops didn't shoot him. They didn't kill him. They let him live. And then, in Georgia, you had Dylan Roof, who shot up a church, and cops bought him a hamburger. But Rayshard Brooks was murdered just because he had a taser. That is, and everybody with the Rayshard Brooks case want to say that tasers are lethal, but if that's the case, why are cops allowed to use tasers on unarmed people? Because in that same video, the cop, before Rayshard grabbed it, used it on him. So if tasers are lethal, then that means cops are using lethal weapons on unarmed people, which is abuse of power and excessive force. That's something that should be talked about. But if they're not considered lethal weapons, then what the cop did was murder, which is why he is being charged with felony murder. But I have a feeling that he's going to get off on his charges, which for the most part, most cops, like 99% of the time, cops don't get charged with the cops don't get convicted when they're charged. And if that's the case, then that just means that our system wants to see more riots going on, because there can be no justice. There can be no peace if there isn't any justice, and that doesn't mean some biased justice where if the darker your skin, the worse your sentence. It has to be equal justice, to where a white person steals something and a black person that steals something, they get the same amount of time in jail, or the same punishment. That the white person gets a slap on the wrist while the black person gets 3 years in prison, because there are many situations where stuff like that happens. Like a really known case of forgot the kid's name, but it was a rich kid who drove and killed people, and the judge let him go because he was affluent, meaning he was white and rich, which is, people want to say white privilege doesn't exist, but look at all these white people that have done serious crimes, like the guy who raped a chick behind a dumpster. He got maybe, I think, a few months probation or something. But what they did was talk about all the things that he could have become, even though he was a rapist. But a black person does something, and all they want to do is bring up their past record. This person was really bad as a kid. when he was 5, he punched his sister and blah, blah, blah. And, when he was 13, he smoked a joint behind the school. And it's like, it tells you how society, views white people, especially the wealthy white people and black people. Um, it's with white people, it's all these things that all these good things about white people, and when it's black people, all these bad things about black people. Even if the person is a mass shooter, uh, the language is created to make it seem like the white person is just a victim. You got the lone shooter mentality. Oh, he's just a lone wolf who had mental problems and blah blah blah. But talk about a black person. Oh, this guy is a criminal gang banging thug who murdered 15 pregnant women. It it shows the racism that is systemic in the United States. Uh, we need a top down, bottom up societal reform where we can actually end racism. We need to also end classism because racism and classism do go hand in hand. All the more wealthy people in the United States all are white people, and that's because of the systemic racism and classism that has happened throughout the years, which has allowed a certain group of people to generate massive amounts of wealth. I know this is a bit all over the place, but I just wanted to try to get my piece out there about what's going on, being that I am a POC myself. This has affected me. It has made me worried about sometimes being out in public. I live in a southern state, and there is a lot of racism here. I've experienced a good bit of racism throughout my years living here. I even had a friend, a person I thought was a friend, tell me that I was the only black person that they didn't see as an animal. And before she told me that, we, were friends for a good while in high school and stuff. And it was surprising because, I didn't think that she was a racist. But come to find out that she was a racist. And there's hidden racism in the United States. Another time where, a person told me that, someone I was trying to become friends with told me that she didn't believe believe in racial mixing. And she said that straight to my face, and I'm like, wow, you're saying that straight to my face, the person is mixed. So you don't believe that I should exist. Been called the N-word a lot. I've had school admins show a racial bias. Yeah, this you get because we got white nationalists that have been emboldened because of like Trump tweeting all his racist stuff. I mean, everybody from the very get-go, everybody knew Trump was racist, and ever since he's become president, it's gotten worse. And Republicans want to say that Obama made racial division even worse. Nah, Trump has truly made it worse than anything else. Because we never had such a blatant Nazi, white nationalist, whatever you want to call his ilk, in office. Like with the Unite the Right rally where a Nazi killed a person, and Trump was trying to say, there's good people on both sides. When you had fucking people, chanting that Jews will not replace them. It's like, wow. And Trump wants to call these people good. But we know why Trump wants to call those people good. Because he is a racist himself. He hates anyone that isn't rich and white. It's just, it's not gonna, for a while, it's not gonna be good. It's gonna be a pretty hard battle. But, in my opinion, the protests can't stop until, there is actual true change going on. It's starting somewhere, but there's a lot of things people are doing just to try to, shut people up. You got, but it can't end until there's actual true justice. There should never be any peace until everybody has justice. Peace out, everybody.